I've ever heard it in here. Welcome to the meeting in Park Commission. Michelle? Yes, we do have a quorum, correct? Thank you very much. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I would like to amend the minutes that show the incorrect person as presiding.
Thank you.
And it should illustrate that the chairman, Mr. Young, was here last month
I missed that.
on a visit, and the minutes should be amended to that effect.
Okay. I don't think we need to
Need to make a
vote on
motion.
it. All in favor of approving the minutes of the last meeting?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Same thing with the fiscal actions report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Project review, actions report. The resolution, actually.
Right.
Yeah, the
Resolution
resolution.
2019-19. Accept the project review actions report. Whereas the Commission had received and reviewed the project review actions report prepared by the staff and dated May 14, 2019. And whereas the Project Review Committee recommends acceptance of the Project Review Actions Report, now therefore be it resolved that the Commission directs that the Project Review Actions Report be incorporated in the minutes of the full Commission meeting. So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the project review actions report. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The first project we're going to cover today is the tourboat application by EDK Boat Tours down to Bolton.
Thank you. Yep, an application's been made for a new tour boat, Adirondack Boat Tours, providing sightseeing and some tubing. The applicant is Eric McIntosh, who's here to represent the application. It's going to be operated out of the Flamingo, which is currently authorized for additional charters, so there's no change to the marina. We're just looking at the new tour boat operation. So Eric, I'd invite you to the microphone, introduce yourself.
Hello, my name's Eric. I'm 21 years old. We've been living up here in Bolton Landing now for 3.5 years. We first came up here about 5 years ago on a convention to the Sagamore. We got a boat up here. We lived on Lake Ontario, so boating was always nice and always on the water. So I'm looking forward to possibly bringing people out. The first time experience on Lake George, especially rental boats and stuff. I worked at a couple marinas. So I'm hoping to give people a great experience the first time on Lake George and not do anything wrong.
You sound like it. Any questions from commissioners?
Not really. No. Is there special licensing required for this?
Yes. Yeah, so it does require a PV license
license.
for the Office of Parks, and the vessel will also be licensed to the Office of Parks.
And you comply with those requirements?
Both, yes.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on the application? Any comments on the application from any commissioners?
No, seems pretty straightforward. Yeah,
There's been a tourboat operation there.
Yeah.
They're authorized for 5. This is only the 4th.
Yeah.
Got a resolution?
Resolution 2019-21, approved tourboat application. Application number is 522053-18 SPT. Applicant is ADK Boat Tours. Whereas the applicant has applied for permit to operate a tour boat, and whereas the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record, and whereas the Commission has made a determination that the project is an unlisted action pursuant to State Environmental Quality Review Act 6 NYCRR 617.5, and as lead agency for the purposes of the State Environmental Quality Review Act has made a determination that the project will have no significant impact on the environment, and the action is considered to be a major project pursuant to 6 NYCRR 645-5.3, and public notice has been published and distributed as required. The applicant has demonstrated that the activity will comply with the tour boat requirements of 646-1.4D2, and whereas the commission finds that the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby resolves to approve the above application as proposed. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the application as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. You just conducted your first successful tour. Okay. Second application is a wharf modification by Peter Boll, Town of Hague.
So the applicant, the property is located just north of the Hagetown Beach and just south of Hague Brook. So it's on a large delta that a lot of you are probably familiar with. Currently, the applicant has a 40-foot long dock. He's requesting a 140-foot long dock, so that way it can be 40 feet from mean low and provide him suitable space for berthing. Mr. Boll is here in the audience to answer any questions. The application does require variances from offshore distance with respect to mean height, as well as sideline.
Do we have actual depth measurements where it is now and at what it would be at 140?
We do. We've got part of the site plan includes bathymetry data showing not just where the mean low is, but the other lake depths relative to the dock length. So it's kind of, the beach, there's sand that kind of flows north from the beach, and the Hague Delta.
Yeah, I know what the Delta's
You can
like.
kind of, in the air photo, you can almost see the little black line of that dock.
Since 5. And I'll have to say quickly, so you're all familiar with the Delta, and 10 years ago they were about to dredge it. There were plans to dredge it. That looked great.
Yeah. He can't quite hear.
I'm sorry. Is this any
Probably
better?
some of these guys up here can't hear.
That's not a speaker, that's just recording.
That's just.
That's just a
Okay.
So Peter, you'll have to...
Should I? How's that?
In the front.
Okay, I'll try to project a little louder here.
Yeah.
So I'll start over. We've owned the property since '85. My father is the second home. The Delta was there back when we bought it. I'll have to say that one error that I made is I read the red, and I thought I've never seen the water lower than right here, the lake front. I didn't know that it meant. So the delta has been growing, but I wouldn't say that's water. I think anybody swimming in the beach now walk out 200 feet of really nice clear. And so that's the essence of what we're trying to do here. I think one of the variance items, we're in a funny corner lot that sticks out right next to the beach. So all the lines that you draw to try to find where to put your dock, it's tight. So we need variances from those lines. I think I have a good relationship with the town. We're very accommodating to them because we're right next to the beach. All their events that go on, we support them. Whether it's kayaking of the triathletes or fireworks, the barges are right in front of our house, and we never push back. So there's a give and take I think we've established with all our neighbors, both the town and the condos and our immediate neighbor who's got a small strip of property there. So those are quick thoughts.
Right. Any commissioners have questions of the applicant right now?
Peter, what's your thought about how much that delta has gotten shallower now for, 85, 95, 05, 20, 30 years or more? What do you think?
I don't have measurements, but I have memories.
Your legs have grown.
Yeah, I would say that the depth has probably come up 6 inches, and that doesn't sound like much, but when you're talking the variations and trying to navigate, you suddenly can't use it. One image that's really clear is when we first moved in, I remember Trout Unlimited, the guys all coming up and fly fishing right across the brook, and 20 years ago probably, it's not a delta, it's a sandbar. And it catches logs and it's built up. There's things starting to grow on it now. That was not there. Like, I'd say not even 6 inches deep. Now it's sticking up a foot. And it just blocks and diverts the flow. And I would say the flow is coming more to the south and pushing our way towards the park. That's not very scientific, but definitely you can see that buildup.
And this has zero to do with the depth. I'm just wondering, since you're sitting right there looking at the outflow from Hay Brook,
Yep.
do you ever see it look muddy, or does it always come out clear?
Oh, yeah, it's the downpours, kind of the obvious. It's like a big flushing of the Route 8 corridor when you get the 2-inch thunderstorms, and then it just pounds out. You get debris. It's definitely muddy. Even though they dug out the catch basin that was created, I don't know, 10 years ago. Yeah. 10 means who knows. But it still comes ripping out into the lake, and you can see turbulence in the water as it flushes out. So, but in general, the Hay Brook flows very cleanly.
Yeah.
With limited smell.
That was just a question designed to figure out if the work done to do those catch basins going up from Bay has made any difference. It doesn't sound like there's been a whole big difference.
My comments are not scientific.
By the way, just as this for my edification on what you see.
Yeah. It's the big, and I'm going to say this was 2 years ago, 4th of July downpour where the culvert in the park plugged across the street of 9N. And the beach all came into, the whole park flooded. That's a different issue than the brook. But at that time, that was epic in terms of our house. The lake looked like the Hudson River down at the Battery. It was bad.
Could I, Dean, that's a good question, because we were there, Joe and I were there, Joe, on Thursday, and even though it wasn't raining on Thursday, it was a little bit, but we've had a lot of precipitation this spring. When I walked out on that dock, I didn't make a comment to the guys, but I thought when I looked in the water, geez, this isn't really typical of Lake George. It wasn't crystal clear like you always see when you're out walking out over on a dock, even if it is raining in most other places. So it's true.
What kind of dock are you going to construct, and what do you do in the wintertime?
I've always taken it out. It's a stake dock, 10-foot sections, and I pull it up on the beach all the time. That's what I plan to do. We have a 3-mile fetch to the southwest. So when the ice flows come,
This area.
It'd be over the
Oh, yeah.
side of Hague.
yeah. No,
Then
that's,
get that nice southwest wind, and it'd be gone.
so remove
Any more
all,
questions?
no plans for any boathouses or.
Yeah, I'm glad you're putting in a stake dock, because anytime you want to go out that far, I think it has to be a stake dock. Otherwise, all you're going to do is cause more problems with cribs in there.
Yeah,
It
hasn't crossed our mind.
It'll work.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else want to speak on this project? Joe?
I just wanted to point out one thing for your consideration. The dock immediately to the north, owned by Hague Commons, also received variances for its length. We put a special condition in that said if the delta is ever dredged and the depth becomes suitable, to bring the dock back within 100 feet of mean high water mark. So I just wanted to put that out there for your consideration, since we did that on the neighboring dock.
Yeah, we can include that in the
Yeah,
condition.
that'd be okay.
Makes sense for them.
I'd like to make one other comment. That is something that bugs me all the time is people ask for docks because they've gone from a 17-foot boat to a 34-foot boat. This guy still has the same boat. And it's the lake has changed, not his desire for a bigger boat that's asking for a bigger dock, which is a point in his favor.
Okay, resolution 2019-22. Application number is 5226-6-19DM. Applicant is Peter Bolt. Whereas the applicant has applied for a permit to replace a 40-foot pier with a 140-foot pier, and the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record. Whereas the Commission has made a determination that the project is a Type 2 action pursuant to 6 NYCRR 617.5, and the action is considered to be a minor project pursuant to 6 NYCRR 645-5.3. Public notice has been published and distributed as required by 645-5.5. And whereas the applicant has requested a variance from 6 NYCRR 646-1.1C, number 2, no dock or wharf shall be constructed so as to exceed the following offshore distance criteria. Number 3, no dock or wharf or mooring shall be constructed or placed so as to extend offshore more than 100 feet from the mean high water mark. Number 11, every dock or wharf constructed shall have a minimum setback of 20 feet from either the adjacent property line extended into the lake or at a right angle to the mean high water mark, whichever results in the greater setback. Whereas the applicant has demonstrated unique and peculiar conditions which impose substantial technological, financial, and safety burden, and whereas the Commission finds that there is no reasonable possibility that the applicant's property will bring a reasonable return following conformance with the regulation, and the Commission finds that the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, or audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby approves the request for variance and approves the above application as proposed, with the conditions that if in the future the delta is dredged, that we revisit the length of the dock. So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the application. Any discussion? The chairman would like to make just a couple points for the record, which we're all aware of. One, that this hardship was not caused by the applicant.
Right.
It was something that happened in the lake, and it wasn't his fault. And I just want to make sure that's in the record. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Just as before we get totally off this, Bruce, I think there was, what I got is that Hague Brook is still eroding from non-point source pollution up Route 8. That we ought to think seriously about what we're going to do about that, because obviously whatever's been done before, with the best of intentions, we still have erosion going into the lake.
Okay.
Next project, Class A marina application. We have for Snug Harbor.
Application's been made by Snug Harbor South in the town of Hague. They purchased the adjacent property to the north, which was previously a marina as well, called Prop and Sail. And they're looking to utilize that facility, the existing lakefront, for docking. So there's no request for an increase in services, number of rentals, or things of that nature. But it's a request for physical expansion for use of the docks at that facility. Mr. Palangiani is here to represent the application.
I'm Bob Palangiani. I'm in Snug Harbor Marina and Snug Harbor South. We've been next door to Prop and Sail Marina for close to 20 years now. Tom had an agreement with us. We always were able to use his dock. He used our docks because he used to sell fishing tackle and bait. Tom passed away. We had first refusal to buy the property, which we did, and we want to continue using it the same way we have for the past 20 years.
Commissioner, do you have questions for the applicant?
No, I don't. I know the place, been there a couple thousand times in my life. Nothing's changed. Good, glad you got it, Bob, because otherwise it probably would have, who knows what would have happened to it.
It's basically, I'm asking both the applicant and just for the records, this is basically no change in the operation
Right.
between the two, correct? It's just, it's a new ownership.
No, we've
New ownership, you need your name on it, you need your name on a permit.
correct.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't have any further questions. Anyone in the audience have any comments on this application?
Resolution 2019-23. Approval Class A Marina application. Application number 5226-13-19M1. Applicant is Robert Palladini of Snug Harbor South. Whereas the applicant has applied for a permit to modify a Class A marina to expand docking facilities to include existing structures on an adjacent parcel, which has recently been purchased by the applicant. The Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record. The Commission has made a determination that the projects are unlisted actions pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, 6 NYCRR 617.5, and as lead agency for the purpose of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, has made a determination that the projects will have no significant impact on the environment, and the action is considered to be a major project pursuant to 6 NYCRR 645-5.3, and public notice has been published and distributed as requested. The applicant has demonstrated that the facility complies with the Class A marina requirements of 6 NYCRR 646-1.2B, and whereas the Commission finds the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, and will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby resolves to approve the above application as proposed. So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Second. Second. Any?
Thanks, Joe.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next one, another Class A marina application submitted by Madison Finley, Town of Bolton.
So this is an application for a new Class A marina. It's offering 2 seasonal berthing spaces at 25 Cotton Point Road in the town of Bolton. Facility currently is a Class B, so it's an addition of 1 additional vessel. He has 2 single piers and a mooring that he's authorized for. And I believe both vessels are proposed to be berthed on the eastern or southern pier. And Mr. Finley is here to... One each, okay. And Mr. Finley's here to represent the application and give you all the real details. If you have any questions, ask you to please.
Someone here, there is someone here.
Good morning. As most of you know, I'm in a position that affects my voice, so forgive me if you can't hear. I believe this is a minimum application. It's about the smallest Class A marina one could have. I have 2 docks. I'm not talking about any new construction. I simply would like to rent a second spot to neighbors Both boats are owned by full-time Bolton residents who are friends. And I meet all of your requirements. The two neighbors, this is one thing Joe may not have publicized, the two neighbors directly to the north who would be next to the new boat that would be added have both approved the support of the project.
Just for the record, sir, I know what you're going to say, but you don't plan on any, and there's nothing in your application for any other marina aspects such as fuel and so forth. You're just strictly renting a dock space.
This dock is 7 feet in front of my cabin. There will be none of that. Thank you.
But I just had to get that in the record.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah. And also, I'd like to commend you on being honest enough. I know there's a lot of people in your situation that would like to rent a second dock for a lot of reasons.
Between 85
they
and
do,
90%,
but they
according to
don't-
your
They
survey.
don't have the courage to come forward and say, I would like a Class A marina permit. It's kind of it sounds like a great big deal, but as you said, it's not a huge marina. It's just what you want to do is rent 2 dock spaces instead of 1.
Thank you for speaking for me, sir.
I appreciate it. Okay. Any further questions for me?
Joe, I'm looking at the photos we have. I'm seeing only one dock on that site. Am I missing something, or was the dock
Yeah, you might have to
ashore
look
when
at
it
the
was taken?
authorized dock configuration. The air photos are generally taken in the spring, and so docks are not always in place.
Okay.
But he is authorized for two
That's what I
straight
thought.
piers,
Yes.
67 and 72 feet long.
These are removable docks. We just put the second one in 2 days ago. So, yes, I get mine in late April. But the next dock is not used until June, and so we put it in late May. So the photo must have been taken in the
Yeah.
interim.
So I figured. Thanks.
Any more questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience want to speak about this application? Joe?
Resolution 2019-24. Application number 5220-14-19M1. Applicant is Matt Finley. Whereas the applicant has applied to a permit to operate a Class A marina offering 2 seasonal berthing spaces. The Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record, and the commission has made a determination that the projects are unlisted actions pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, 6 NYCRR 617.5, and as lead agency for the purpose of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, has made a determination that the projects will have no significant impact on the environment, and whereas the action is considered to be a major project pursuant to 6 NYCRR 645-5.3, public notice has been published and distributed as requested. The applicant has demonstrated that the facility complies with the Class A marina requirements of 6 NYCRR 646-1.2B, and whereas the commission finds the project will not have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby resolves to approve the above application as proposed. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution of the application. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, the final application before us today is one that was switched around. It's the Foley Family Trust.
Yes.
If I pronounced that right, but it's probably close.
My application, or I've been reviewing it, and this is not an application for a permit, which is what you're typically hearing during project review, but this is a request to amend an existing wharf registration. And the existing wharf registrations were those that were sent into Department of Environmental Conservation back in 1981 to grandfather docks that were in place in the lake at that time. So anything that was actually existing in 1981 had to be registered in order to be considered an existing wharf, which is defined in our regulations, and not subject to our current standards. Staff has reviewed this. We don't get a whole lot of them. Occasionally we approve them, occasionally we deny them. Staff found no objective evidence to show that the dock was not the length that it was registered at in 1981, which was 60 feet. We had found that the dock is now 100 feet and initiated a law enforcement case on it because it's longer than what was registered. So the applicants are here, and Mr. Stafford is here to represent them in their request to amend this. They feel that it's been 100 feet since 1981.
Okay, and before we get to that, just one second, I have a question for council.
Yes.
Is there any reason, legal or otherwise, procedural-wise, to approach this amendment any way different from when we would if someone actually had a 60-foot dock and wanted to increase it to 100 feet? I mean, what I'm in a roundabout way, what I'm saying is the permit says 60 feet. The applicant says it should be 100. They want to change it to 100. Are we to look at that differently from what we would look like from an increase from 60 to 100?
Well, this is not a variance application. They would have to come back and get a separate application. You have to look at it separately. Right now, we're just looking, and correct me if I'm wrong, Molly, right now we're just looking at back in what it was back then, and can they demonstrate that what it was back then is what it is now?
But it was approved back then at 60 feet.
Yes. So you have to look.
It was registered.
It was registered at
Registered.
60
We're
affirming the registration.
They didn't do approvals back then. They just registered the docks. What was
It was
existing.
registered at 60 feet.
Right.
It was
They want-
accepted.
Right.
I just want to be clear here because there is a difference.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. That having said, I hope I haven't confused you. I know I haven't confused you, but I confused myself.
Good morning. My name is Michael Stafford. I'm here representing the dock owners. And we are here just to determine what the length was on July 3rd, 1981. We're not here asking for a variance.
Gotcha.
You should have in front of you the original sketch by the original three owners. It's not to scale. It does say 60 feet on it. I don't know why it said 60 feet. Unfortunately, all of those people have either died. There's one gal who's still alive, but she's in a nursing home with Alzheimer's. So nobody is here to give an explanation as to why they registered the dock with a sketch. If you see it, I mean, all the docks are different lengths on Shallow Beach. They just put all of them in their same length, and they wrote 60 feet. They did do that. I don't know why they did that. There's no question that that's what they did. Unfortunately, because they have either been so long and have either died or the one gal who's left can't remember anything, we don't have them here. But we do have a lot of things here that I think clearly established this dock was 100 feet back on July 3rd, 1981. First of all, the Park Commission itself, and I realize this is an 81, sketched the dock in 1997. That's in your file. Molly did it. It shows it as 100 feet. There's a photograph that you have from 1990 that shows the dock at 100 feet. So there's no question the dock was 100 feet long in 1990, which is 29 years ago. We have statements from 10 of the neighbors who have no dog in the fight other than to be truthful, who all say the length of the dock now is the length that it's always been. 10 neighbors. I spoke last night with Mike Elliott, who has the dock next to it. You should have his statement as well. He wanted to come in and testify. I said, I don't think they're taking testimony today, but he was more than willing to come in. He's a retired BCI investigator. He has no reason to lie to the commission or say something that wasn't true. He said, I moved there in 1980, and that's the same dock that was there in 1980. We also have, it's not a statement from Scott Anderson, it's a message he left on one of my client's answering machines that says he was told he can't put anything in writing, but he grew up there, and the dock that's there is the same dock that was there when he was a kid. He can't testify that it was exactly 100 feet. Nobody went out and measured it, but his statement that you have says that this dock that's there right now is the same dock that was there in the 70s when he was a kid. You have 3 sworn statements under penalties of perjury from the 3 men who built the dock, explaining where they built it, how they brought it from Albany to Lake George, when they put it in, and it all is in the 1970s. The same dock that's there now was the dock that they have sworn that they built in sections at Chrysopoli's plumbing outlet in Albany, Colony, and brought it up to Lake George and put it in. I don't think that they would make those statements under penalties of perjury if they weren't true. But that's what you have in front of you for proof. And I'm going to ask one of my clients to come up. There's a picture from October of 1981, which the commission has, which shows the dock that is still there, that was there in 1981. There's some questions about how many posts there are to figure out how long it is, but it is the dock that was there at the end of the season in 1981. And I'd like him to come up and just explain to you he's the one that did it, put the post in, if I may.
Of course.
My name's Jim Splunskowski.
Do you have the picture to look at, or?
Yes.
Jim Splunskowski, Fund the Family Trust. I'm one of the builders of the dock back in the late 70s. And the first meeting I had with Molly, the whole meeting was discussing this picture from 81. And she was saying that the posts are wooden posts, and there's only 6 posts. Well, she's partially correct. There are only 6 posts. It takes 6 posts to put 5 sections of this dock in, which are 16 feet per section. The posts are metal posts with wooden bumpers attached to them. This dock, after a year or 2, I forget exactly whether it was the exact year after or a year after that, started showing sagging on the 16-foot section, so we put intermediate posts in. In one of the last comments, I don't know where she got the number, she said there's 8 posts now, where there's actually 11 posts on each side. If you do the math, that's the way it works out. This dock has never been changed. This dock was put in because we had 3 families that shared a dock, and it's in a very low water area. Then she mentioned that something was changed after 1997, which I have no idea what changed. Nothing changed. I don't know what she meant by that. She didn't say what changed. I believe she was indicating the length had changed, but it showed 100 foot in 1990. So it's 100 foot today. So all we're asking is, we've done everything we could to prove to you people, I know the burden is on us, to prove to you people that the dock is in existence as it was put in the late 70s. The time frame is what's killing us. There was numerous trips down there about other situations with other docks, and they all indicated that our dock was 100 feet long and no action was taken. We were never approached. We were unaware that there was a situation. I was never part of the permitting process in the beginning. I kind of knew how my father-in-law did business. I wouldn't be surprised if he says, just put down 60 feet. And he was a businessman, and he had his funny ways. But anyways, and the other 2 families were kind of followers. Whatever my father-in-law said, they kind of did the same thing. And all we're asking is for the truth. And if this wasn't ignored for 28 years, we could have some of the original owners standing here telling you people exactly what happened. But unfortunately, that's impossible. We can't raise them from the dead. So that's about it. If anybody had any questions? Thank you.
You're cutting off your climate. Your client. There have been times when that was a very good move, though. Go ahead. You have something more for it?
No, I'm just here in case anybody has anything they want to say.
Anybody else have any questions right now?
other commenters?
I'm sorry?
Are there other commenters?
Oh, yeah, you can make a comment.
No, are there other comments?
I was going to get to that, but I was asking anybody who wants to ask him before I ask anybody else in the audience.
Thank you.
Does anybody else in the audience want to comment on this project?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm Richie Simonson. I own that Shallow Beach, all of that property. And these docks were all registered when they were. And Mr. Christofoli didn't make a mistake and put 61 feet instead of 100 feet. And then all his people who were on that dock paid the same thing. There's like 4 or 5 docks that already have come within compliance because everybody stretched their dock out over the years. So if this guy could come up and say, well, it was this long and he made a mistake, you're going to have this over and over again. Having all these people who testified that the dock was 100 feet all have docks down there, this is going to affect their situation too. Plus the fact, none of them have a deeded right to a dock. That's a legal matter, but I don't think the people are really concerned about that. But nobody pays anything to maintain this property. None of these people who have docks on us can put any effort into taking care of the property. They don't even cut the grass going out to their dock. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
You maintain that you own that property, sir? You're the owner? Are you maintaining that you're the owner of the shoreline?
I'm the owner of all that property. I'm the owner of the deeded right to get to the beach. I'm the owner of the beach and 55 acres down.
So, but they do have a deeded right to the beach.
They have a 20-foot deeded right to the beach and a 20-foot deeded right to use 200 foot of beach. That's the only thing it says in their deed. Nobody's congested or saying we want to go to court and take this away. But we're not getting any cooperation of any sort.
But the docks were built with or without your knowledge, but over the number of years
I didn't always own this property. I owned Shallow Beach Cottages, which I had a dock on that property too, just like all of these people. But at one point, people kept buying it, putting up fences, blocking our access. So at one point, I bought the property because I had like 15 cottages that I had to rent. And some guy would come along the end of June and put a fence up, block the property. And there's no legal way you can ratify that.
So when you bought the property, the docks existed?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments?
Yeah, I wanted to say about the enforcement. The way it's been, if a neighbor complains or an owner complains about what's going on at a dock, then you can call the Lake George Park Commission and they'll come down and review it. But they really don't, they really didn't have like a staff of policing things to go around and enforce any violations, only if somebody complains. And since, when we were the owners, we didn't make a big deal of it, even though I knew when I bought the property, my neighbors weren't in compliance. I really didn't think that I should be the policeman. So, because the fact that it wasn't enforced is, to me, irrelevant. And last night when my son was over, I showed him this information, and he says, Ma, I was fishing down there like when I was 10 years old. the thing I remember is that the longest docks were the hotel docks. Now, I don't know what they were, but I know that the two hotel docks, which are 88 foot, were the longest docks there. Now, like I said, I didn't go after my neighbors because they weren't, they were my neighbors and they weren't, doing anything bad down there, other than we did kind of put a little kibosh on them renting out their dock spaces to other people, because then people would have to come down and drive down the road and park. And actually, technically, we have all cars down there and whatever. That's not in the deed. The deed is you have 20 feet to get to that 200-foot of shoreline. And I'm not even sure that the docks are even within that 200 feet. But if somebody wants to pull some weeds and clean up the shoreline, maybe they have to learn how to take out milfoil and stuff, they could, I would say it's okay if you pull the weeds. But I think that we have to just, and I wrote 2 letters to the board. One with my history and one with my opinion, is that we should be grateful, and I'm grateful that the Lake George Park Commission has acknowledged that there is a dock there, and we feel somewhat protected because it's not in our deeds. And like I said in my letter, my lawyer says, don't buy that property. It's stupid, but,
One question, if I may.
Go ahead.
The photograph that I'm looking at has 4 docks. There's 4 long docks there. Which one of those docks would be the hotel docks?
My dock is the one to the far left.
Okay.
And then we used to get together years and years ago. It's like a gentleman's association, and we paid $25 each. So just in case somebody comes and objects to us using the beach, the owners object to it, then we have some money put aside to get a lawyer. And that has been a nuisance for years. It's been horrible. And I'm going to say, my lawyer was right. And then finally, when the place come up for sale, we bought it. We bought it. And we paid a lot. $80,000 is actually too much for it. We own it. We own it, and we appreciate the Lake George Park Commission acknowledging our docks, giving us access to the lake, and I think that all the docks should be into the original compliance and what was registered, and that's it. Now, you guys can do what you want, but, and I won't object, of course, but, at least I had my say.
This is the dock.
Thank you, ma'am.
I think there's no question, as a matter of fact, that the dock was 100 feet long in 1990. You have a picture that shows it 100 feet long in 1990. Question is, what was it in July of 81? You have a photograph that the builder of the dock says that was the dock, that it was there then, and it's still there now. Acknowledging that it's their burden, I think they've met their burden to show you that this dock on July 3, 1981 was 100 feet long. Thank you.
I just have a question. It's probably a $64,000 question. Why did they register it at 60 feet? Were they under some sort of duress? What is your...
There were 3 families. They filled out that sketch that you have. I don't know why, and that the whole point is we can't ask them why, because, I mean, in 1990 or 1997, when the Park Commission actually drew a picture of the dock at 100 feet, they were alive. They could come in here and they could tell you whatever. I don't know why they did it. But the builder of the dock, the son-in-law, has testified and has a sworn affidavit that he built it long before 1981. He told you where he built it. He told you when he built it. Also his 2 brothers-in-law had sworn affidavits, and you have a picture of it in the season of 1981. But I don't know why they did what they did.
Anyone else want to speak at this point? Any commissioners want to speak? This is,
Well, I think the staff has done, due diligence on going back into the records, which was claimed to be 60 feet. There's no other documentation that shows it being greater than 60 feet. The owners of the property have said there's been some changes over the time. And we've had witnesses on both sides basically saying that it's been 100 feet and others say it's 60 feet. So, I feel as though we should...
We'll get back to you.
Yeah, there is nobody said it was that in 1981. No, they didn't even own it until 2000.
I understand. But,
There's testimony on both sides, I'm sorry.
right. And so I'm kind of understanding and being with the staff doing their due diligence that we're here to stay at 60 feet.
Yeah, well, anybody else?
I've read the affidavits, sent out as part of the package, and stating it was their best recollection. It was 100 feet when it was built, or it's been like that prior to 1981. I read those, and I'm certainly not going to say they're wrong. We have the issue here where the only documentation we have is it's 60 feet, so we've got a toss-up there. And I believe that there were other docks there, that the people who owned those docks, who had said that they were 60, have now put them back to 60 feet. Is this correct, Joe and Molly, that there were other docks there that were supposed to be 60 and they were long, but the people have now put them back to 60 feet? Is this correct?
There was one at 60 and one at a shorter one, but they were brought back
into what they said they were registered for. So we've got a real situation here.
And when were those docks registered?
Everything was at 81.
Exactly.
Molly, do you know when I'm looking at this picture we have here, the aerial photograph shows 4 docks basically parallel, all just about the same length on that property. It doesn't have a date on it, but there is a schematic that was done 2 years ago, Joe?
Yeah,
2017 that shows 4 docks but not parallel and not all the same length. So I'm wondering, where this aerial photograph came from. And since you were...
I think you're probably looking at the docks next door, because there are 400-foot docks that belong to the property next door.
Right, that's what he's looking at.
Yeah,
that's what I'm looking at.
The
Exactly.
aerial doesn't show many of the 6 docks that are on the Simonson property, because most of them worn out, as Joe mentioned earlier. When they take the aerial photographs, a lot of the docks just haven't been placed for the season.
So these docks do come in and out?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
But there's been a reference that the Park Commission measured or photoed these docks in 1990 or 19...
I found a 1990 aerial that showed the dock being longer, and we measured them in 1997.
And how long were the time measurement?
I think the same lengths they are now. Or were when we measured in 2017.
So we've established that the docks were previously the same length they were now. We simply don't know what they were.
Just not in 1981. Yes, we knew they'd been...
Excuse me, I have a question. Is it possible to get aerial photos from 1981?
I have tried. There's a 1982, but it doesn't show any docks because they weren't in the water when they took the picture. It was in May of 1982. That's the closest we could get. And we have the 1958 shoreline survey.
What this basically boils down to is, one, you have a permit for 60 feet. 2, you have people with a sworn statement saying it wasn't 60 feet, it was 100 feet. I am I'm uncomfortable with, I'd much rather be looking at this project, and I know why it's here. I know why it's here to get the permit. I'd much rather be looking at this as a application for a variance to leave the dock at 100 feet than I am at amending it, because I think the question, if you really look at the basic purpose of the Park Commission, is to protect Lake George. And the question here is this dock offending any or destroying anybody's property rights, or is it destroying Lake George? And we're not examining that at all. All we're trying to do right now is decide whether or not it was 100 feet or 60 feet. And I'm uncomfortable with doing that. I'd much rather see this as an application for a variance. And I know that's a much more involved procedure for the applicant. But for that reason, I'm not willing to change the written record as it is, which says it's 60 feet. Right. I'd much rather approach the question is, well, is it okay if it's 100 feet? Because we're not looking at whether or not it's okay as 100 feet.
No, we should be. Plus, these docks come in and out. And if docks come in and out, then things can change over time.
I can see
it's not like we have a
reasons
crib
why
dock here, which is fixed.
But we can't avoid the fact that the Park Commission acknowledged the docks existed at a certain length, and if it was incorrect at that time, should the Park Commission have taken some action that day? So, do we correct what presumably could be a Park Commission error or avoidance?
Well, it gets back to, are you willing to change the record from 81 based on what you know now?
It sounds like if anything should have been changed, it should have been the owner of the docks measuring exactly what they had out there and writing that down and not guessing at the length. If that's what they did.
We measured that.
And also,
no, we didn't measure it in 81.
Do they have to have this 40 feet?
Exactly.
Well, that's the variance question.
Yeah, that's the various question.
Right.
Is it really required? Is there a financial, on our variance things, is there a financial hardship? That comes in.
Well, we're not talking about variance.
But variance, I'm just saying.
We're not talking
Do
about
they need this 40 feet?
Right. They may need it, but we're not talking about it right now. All we're talking about right now is, do we amend the record from 81? And I, for one, am not willing to amend it.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. And the other point is there's adjacent docks on the property that have complied and been amended to the 60-foot
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
did you want to say something?
I have the greatest respect for the due diligence that Mr. Thune and Ms. Gallagher and Lieutenant Jones have done. I think the application is a little bit misguided in asking us to correct a permanent record, because we don't have the evidence for that. It's also my opinion that we should amend this thing, recognizing that fact, but accepting that the dock has been 100 feet for so long that we have acquiesced in its existence and should remain so.
The problem, Jim, is I don't know for sure it's been 100 feet. That's the problem. If I accepted it's been 100 feet, then that
I'll
means...
accept their word.
Before you get into it, I love to see these guys argue. They don't really do that.
But if I accept 100 feet, that means I have to figure out...
Before we get into a
assume that
discussion about
the
what
people
they
who wrote the other ones
let's
were
stay
wrong.
on the point of whether or not we're going to
amend the record.
amend the record and change the permit. And that's the question before us. Right. And it doesn't mean, if you say yes or no, it doesn't mean that they're blocked out of having 100-foot dock. There are other avenues.
Right.
And Mr. Chris Fuley, when in 1981, he was a well-respected businessman. I can't imagine him making a mistake. It's either 60 feet or 100 feet. I mean, he registered that at 60 feet. You can't make a mistake from 40 feet.
Well,
So
I'm not saying
probably,
whether- I'm not
the way
saying
I look at it is, over the years, it was because it's a deck dock that can be taken out. It's not a crib dock. It may have been extended, and all the people that wrote in with good intentions and do believe what they're saying is true, maybe it was extended in little pieces, and they weren't aware of that. But a successful businessman in registering a dock at 60 feet isn't going to make a mistake at 40 feet. I'm sorry.
Well, I can't cast judgment upon the intelligence of the way she did it, because I don't have that information, but I can say that we don't have sufficient information right here, as far as I'm concerned, to amend the record.
No, we don't.
Well, the other issue, of course, Kathy, is that the rest of the other 3 docks have complied to 60 feet length.
Yes, they have.
So there was some assumption on their part that it was originally 60 feet.
Still have
I don't know
evidence
under what condition that was done. They were amended, maybe because it was easy for them to do it instead of trying to get their registration amended too. I don't know. I'm not familiar with it.
I'll move the question, but with the comment that we still have acknowledgement that the Park Commission knew they were 100 plus or minus feet at a previous time.
When you mean that, Mr. Parker, do you mean like back in 1997, not
Yes.
back in 1981?
No, not
Okay,
that.
but we're only looking at 1981.
Right, but not,
Yeah,
if
because
you're- all right, I understand your focus. Okay. Move the question.
So here, I guess the point is that in order to get to a variance application and ever have this approved, one has to either we have to either make a decision that would say, no, we're not amending the record, therefore you are under the jurisdiction for an extra length. So either they acquiesce to that, or we make a decision to deny the amended registration, which is kind of, from a legal aspect, I kind of have a little issue with that. It's a registration, and wouldn't it be a re-registration, or is that possible, or how can you amend something like that?
Well, I have more than a legal problem with it.
Yeah.
You just can't change a registration that was made in 81.
That's the issue. It's registered, it's
That's
registered.
30.
And so,
38 years ago.
yeah.
The question before us is, do we change it or don't we change it, right? I move that we vote on the question as it's before us. We're not going to block out any other application, any other steps. But I move that we vote on the application. Okay, we have a second. On the moving the question.
He seconded it.
I have a vote on moving the question in order to continue discussion. All in favor of ending discussion and voting on the application, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Resolution 2019-20, approve the REW amendment request. Application number 5220-43-18. Applicant is Shirley Christofoli Family Trust. Whereas the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the request from Shirley Christofoli Family Trust to amend registration of existing wharf number 338. And whereas the Commission has reviewed the pertinent documents available, and whereas the Commission finds that there is new evidence showing that the sketch attached to the registration of existing wharf number 338 was in error as to the length of the dock as it existed on July 3rd, 1981. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby directs staff to amend registration of existing staff number 338 by modifying the size of the registered dock to 100 foot by 4 foot. So moved.
It's been moved in. Second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
no,
No.
No. No.
No.
No.
And no. The application to amend the regulation, or to amend the registration has failed. Mike, you understand that doesn't preclude, and I would recommend, I know it's more work, it's more expense for the applicant, but you understand the reasoning we just went through. I would recommend that you ask your client to come forward with
A variance application.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Wade. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Next item on the agenda was the request for legal services to continue, and the chairman would just like to put it in the record that he is appointing Mr. Stanek, Mr. Nishaw, and Mr. Parker as a committee of 3 to look over the application or the proposals and to come before the commission at the next meeting with a recommendation for the commission as to continuing our legal representation. You 3 gentlemen acknowledge that?
Yes.
Public comments. What did I miss? Oh, I missed your chance to do law enforcement. You have a law enforcement report,
Yeah, I
sir?
do. I just found it. Thanks. The Law Enforcement Committee did meet this morning and reported, we had an equipment report from Lieutenant Johns that our new patrol boat is in, which the commission was able to acquire that through Parks and Rec at a very, very minimal cost in relation to what a new boat should cost. We sold the boat that it replaced at auction at an amount that none of us expected to get, so further reduced the replacement cost. The Marine Patrol reported on a very busy holiday weekend, but I don't believe there were any serious incidents over the holiday weekend, except for non-bodily injury, boats entering the top of the dock rather than the side of the dock. So thereby, we have a resolution 2019-25, whereas the Law Enforcement Committee met May 28, 2019, to review matters pertaining to the Lake George Park Commission's Marine Patrol and the Commission's law enforcement program, and whereas active law enforcement cases and their status were reviewed in executive session, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee has reported on the results of that committee meeting at this full commission meeting, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee recommends acceptance of this month's law enforcement report, now therefore be it resolved that the commission accepts the report of the Law Enforcement Committee, and I make that as a motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Law Enforcement Committee. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Public comments. Anyone?
I just want to say, Dr. Cook mentioned the sediment basins up in Cade. As part of our job at the Lake George, I'm Pat Down from the Lake George Association, by the way. As part of the work that we do, we actually checked that sediment basin about 3 weeks ago, and it's on the schedule to get emptied at some point this summer. The last time it was done was 2015. So that's something that we're kind of keeping an eye on and tracking how much those sediment basins are filling up based on the kind of storms that we're having. I wanted to put your mind at ease that that's going to be taken care of.
I understand that. Do we know for sure where the sediment's coming from?
I know that Randy has a number of projects that he's working on up there this year, both with individual homeowners and I believe with Cade itself.
Okay.
I don't want to speak to them because I'm not sure exactly what he's working with Cade, but I know he's got a couple of projects up there with homeowners that he's working on.
Yeah, because obviously we haven't solved the problem yet.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So,
and I appreciate
we're working on it.
And I appreciate the work you guys do for sure.
Thank you.
But obviously, it sounds like we got more work to do.
Well, and part of the problem, without taking too much time, part of the problem really is the fact that the storms are getting heavier and
Exactly.
And we had a winter spring this year.
Got a pretty good runoff.
Well, I mean, ask about the gates being open since
Oh yeah.
March.
If anybody wanted to see a river at full song, you still lived in the middle of back on the road about 3 weeks ago.
Thank you. Any further public comments?
I have a question.
Sir.
On this recent Christopoli application, and I assume that they're going to apply for a variance, but they don't own the property, and the owners who were sitting there suggested that they were against the increased length. Is that a legal question before the... How is that going to play out?
Well, that's a good question because that's a little confusing. And I want to talk to Molly about that a little bit and see the deeds because I don't have the deeds.
We do have
deeds, yeah, it wasn't.
But we didn't, review them as part of this application.
Right. So that's something we'd have to look at. They'd have to get generally approval
From the owners, right?
to come before you, but I'll look at the,
Something about
The property owner or the dock?
well, that's what
I just want to head it off. Somebody's going to look at it.
I mean, just, they may have someone, it may not be a deeded easement, they may have a prescriptive easement. they
It
may
sounds,
have
yeah,
something
it sounds
else.
like to me this would be prescriptive after all these years.
Yeah, but that's a legal decision that the
That's
court would
right.
have to make,
right.
not us.
The owners of the same spot. Any further comments?
Well, they've been using it.
Motion, Mr. Chairman, that we adjourn today's meeting.
Second.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Done.